turn me up. I like my money like I like my niggas. Scream, face card, never decline of what I mean. Act up and you gon' make me make a scene. Only time you hear my voice is when they play me on the screen. Got bad habits, I'm not the one you wanna keep. She a trap star, put that lady on a tree. Got her ass so shook, she shaking like an apple tree. Yeah, this life ain't meant for you, but baby girl, it's meant for me. This lifestyle ain't meant for you, it's meant for me. This lifestyle got girlies clocking on my teeth. This lifestyle can get you far, know what I mean. This lifestyle ain't meant for you, it's meant for me. What it do? This my boo, she from the south. We running man just like these bitches run they mouth. I got the juice, but they still claim it, it's a drought. If I say I'm coming through, I'm about to flip the house. That boy crazy, say he tryna have my baby. Hold on, Slim Shady, just like Mariah, drive him crazy. Got him stressed, make him feel it in his chest. Ask him how it feel, just like a bullet with no vest. This lifestyle ain't meant for you, it's meant for me. This lifestyle got girlies clocking on my teeth. This lifestyle can get you far, know what I mean. This lifestyle ain't meant for you, it's meant for me.
What is going on, Vibers? Okay, I hope everybody's good. Let me get this track off of here. So we are back. I had to let my computer do its thing because it was going to be acting really slow and silly if I didn't. So thank you guys for being patient with me. I definitely appreciate it. So we're going to do this review. Jubilee had Candace Owens versus a couple of feminists, and one of the people that they're claiming to be a feminist is Princella Clark. So I want to hear all of it, right? I haven't got a chance to like listen to all of it. I kind of like peeped in different parts, and I'm just going to say this as a person that absolutely identifies as a feminist. I am really curious as to what these quote unquote feminists had to say. Okay. Because I do feel like feminism has been hijacked by a bunch of people that obviously have, you know, some other thing going on, some other type of issues or whatever, but we're going to get into it. But first, we got to hear from our sponsors. One of them very, very special to me, and that is the Sweet Yoni. Okay, this is where you want to go to for all of your washes and gel foams and anything that you need as it pertains to feminine hygiene. I use this product daily, actually a couple of times a day, okay? Because it is a feminine hygiene product. It is made with all natural ingredients. It is pH balanced for women, and it is very good, okay? One of the things that I love about it is that it's very mild, it's very good for you, and it's very moisturizing, okay? Because some of these things are actually kind of drying to the skin in that area. So I want you guys to check it out. There's going to be a discount code pinned down in the comment section of this video. Let's get into some Sweet Yoni, okay? And this is actually the business of one of the Vibers as well.
Experience the ultimate in feminine care with the Sweet Yoni Lavender QG Gel Wash. This soothing, lavender-infused formula ensures freshness and comfort all day, elevating your hygiene routine. Click the link and shop now.
This product is so important because not only is it produced with care, but it actually has proven results. There have been over 10,000 units of this sold. The company name is shareabutters.com, and this was developed with love by a woman who simply wanted to help her beautiful daughter as she recovered from the devastating effects of cancer, chemo, and radiation burn, and has helped many others with fading stretch marks, eczema, and many other skin issues. Check out the website as it has tons of other valuable products. Check it out. There will be a link and a discount code pinned in the comments section of this video.
Nobody is above blocking. You stress me, I block you. You give me attitude, I block you. You come on my page, talk crazy stuff, I block you. You don't like me, me don't like you, I block you. It's real life.
All right, Vibers, it's real life. Let's go ahead and get this situation underway. Okay, so again, this is Jubilee. We used to do these all the time, okay? And I love reviewing Jubilee. All right, so let me pull them in. And like I said, I haven't got a chance to see much of it. So I'm really curious because like I said, I absolutely identify as a feminist and I'm quite proud of it. And I'm not one of those people that have allowed the community to shame me out of it. Okay, let's get into it. All right. Candace Owens is on the hot seat. Let's go.
Women, they don't want to stay at home when you pull them. They just want flexible working hours and flexible working conditions like you have. And I think we should all advocate for that. It's not one or the other. But when you sit here and you go, you'll be more fulfilled doing this, then spend all your time doing that. We would love for you to leave the public eye and go focus on what makes you fulfilled.
Okay. Hi, my name is Candace Owens. I am a podcaster, a mother, a wife, and also the author of the upcoming book, Make Him a Sandwich. And today I am surrounded by 20 feminists. My first claim is that the sexual revolution has devalued women and made them infinitely less happy.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, I'm Samaya.
Samaya, nice to meet you. I'm Candace.
Nice to meet you too. So my question for you is, statistics show that 60% of women who are murdered by their intimate partners, murdered by someone that they are in close relations with. That's according to the UN from 2023.
Yeah.
So how is it that, women are so valued, quote unquote, in the home, and yet that's the place where they're at the most danger?
Okay, so I'm not sure what that has to do with the sexual revolution.
Right, the sexual revolution.
Right.
The sexual revolution gave.
I'm happy to answer it. I'm just saying that, if you broaden that statistic, you are more likely in general just to be murdered by somebody you know. So, of course.
But men are much less likely to be murdered by, their
That's not
partners.
true.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm sure, because men are less likely to be murdered by women. Full stop. Yeah, exactly. So that statistic makes sense to me. I'm still not sure how this correlates to whether or not
the sexual revolution increased women's ability to leave the house, women's ability to control their own reproductive capabilities, women's ability to, control their own capacity within the workforce in regards to their own sexual capacity. So it is the very fact that the sexual revolution happened that made our access to the workplace much more, or just the public sphere in general, much more easy. So without the sexual revolution, women would be much more confined to the place where they're at the most danger. Isn't that true?
So you think that, just so I'm trying to understand your argument here, you think that if we didn't have the sexual revolution, less women or more women would be murdered? Are you saying that women are
more women would be murdered, for sure?
Okay. I disagree with that. I still don't think it has anything to do with the claim that women are infinitely less happy because of the sexual revolution, which has devalued women.
I think you'd probably be less happy if you're being murdered.
Oh.
Anyone?
Okay, yeah, I don't, okay. Okay. There is definitely a correlation between personal relationships and domestic violence. And just to be clear, if we're talking about just a monogamous relationships, the most violent relationships that are on the books are between lesbian partners. Yes, when people are intimate,
that's not a true
that is actually true.
No, the statistic you're talking about is people who have faced domestic violence. Lesbians, yes, are more likely to have faced domestic violence, but that's because they typically came from relationships with men in which they were mistreated.
Lesbian relationships are the most violent relationships.
Okay, so I want to stop right here because before it turns into a whole bunch of stuff, right? I want to talk about it. So I have never necessarily been a fan of Candace, right? At all. She just not. I have, however, been paying a little bit more attention to her as of late, but still not a fan. I'm also not a fan of the weaponization of feminism and women's issues to suit someone's agenda. So let me give you my definition of feminism. Okay, very, very simple, my understanding. Okay, I am all for, as a feminist, for the advancement and the protections of women and girls to their highest and greatest good. Okay, not in competition with men. Not interested in having a pissing contest with men, not here to diminish men or anything. Boundaries for men and women is the kind of feminist that I am, okay? And support of your brand of womanhood that does not diminish or harm other women. Okay, so let's go to the first part. This to me sounds like why a lot of the younger feminists sometimes to me sound dumb. And I don't even mean to say that like I don't even mean that in a really bad way. I just like it's like a lack of connecting their thoughts with reality. So she's asserting that women are mostly, when it's dangerous. No, let's start here. The sexual revolution protected women. And I understand why a lot of women say that. And I think it's because a lot of us don't do a lot of research. So to say that the sexual revolution protects or saved women, in my opinion, is kind of like weird, because the sexual revolution, in my opinion, I understand why people think that way, but what it did was give men access to women in ways, it basically, to me, I guess the word that I'm looking for is it diminished femininity, it diminished womanhood, right? So it just it made it seem like women had little to no value, right? So now, am I saying that women shouldn't have their own sexual autonomy? Absolutely. That's why I'm a feminist, because I believe that a woman should have sexual autonomy. But I also don't think that that should be to her detriment. And I don't think it should be for the advancement of men's agenda. And if you study what's behind the sexual revolution, then you know that this was an agenda that was not necessarily with women's best interest at heart. And a lot, like all these agendas, the shit starts off like sounding good. It sounds like they're appeasing exactly what we want and exactly what we need, but there's always an underlying theme there. Okay, so let's see. CJ says that it was a free for all with the sexual revolution. Yeah, because like we'll have to like think about the things that came out of the sexual revolution, the golden age of pornography, right? The normalization of basically diminishing and demeaning women sexually. Okay, a lot of that came out. So I'm not saying that there weren't things that literally may have worked positive in women's favor, but I am saying that most of the sexual revolution was so that men could have easier access to women's vaginas. Okay. And so that men could monetize it, right? Because we're not talking about, we didn't have OnlyFans back then. We didn't have all that kind of stuff. So the monetization and the exploitation of women increased with the sexual revolution. And that's something that actual feminists understand and know.
That we have on the book,
but we can move on.
They can fact check that claim. The point being is that it's
and the part about the lesbians. Okay, so I know a lot of people don't like to talk about this part, but yeah, lesbian relationships by far are absolutely relationships that deal with the highest rates of domestic violence. Okay, it just is what it is. Let me make this. Hey, Ren just popped on, and so let me put it to where we both can be seen. Let me edit this layout. Give me 1 second. And you're on mute, honey. You are on mute, muffin butter.
I'm turning my camera off. Give me a minute.
I'm sorry. Too late. You on there now, beautiful. You're on there now. Too late now. So you might as well just stay your butt on up there. Let me move some stuff around so that we can both be seen. Let me make myself a bit smaller. You want to jump in already? You got something you want to jump in on?
I've been just listening so far. I did like in the beginning, I didn't like the way she started off, because when she said that women were less safe in a place where they, basically at home. As if every woman is experiencing terror and violence at home. I think it's just something that it just made me think about how we're always supposed to be thinking that the big bad wolf is after us, that somebody is coming to get us and destroy us and kill us and annihilate us. And you think about it, when you, just as a person, as a human being, if you're constantly walking around in a state of fear, now you're supposed to be afraid at home. You're afraid at work. You're afraid on the subway. You're afraid on the bus, in your car, in the plane. It's a lot. I think it's a lot on our psyche.
Yeah, and then even thinking about that, anything that is fear driven is not empowering. So if we're talking about, because like that's what she led with. Basically, if you're at home, if women didn't go to work, they would be unalive. They'd be hit. Like, as someone who has never had hands and feet put on them ever a day in my life and will not stand for it, right? Like, I'm trying to figure out, what are you talking about? Now, do I say that to diminish that some women are definitely in dangerous situations with the men in their houses, or the men that may break into the houses or whatever? That's definitely a thing. I'm never going to take away from that, but I'm also not going to act like the majority of us are not safe in our homes. Okay, the majority of us are not getting hands and feet put on us, and are not going to be unalived in our homes. That's not what's going to happen. And weaponizing the plight or the dangers that have happened to other women, that's manipulation. That is, again, that's not empowerment. That's not empowerment. Island Girl, and that's what Candace just brought up. I hope I don't end up agreeing with Candace too much, because that's going to get on my nerves. That's what she just brought up. You know what I mean? She just brought up that, and then girl, she doesn't want to hear it, because and that's the problem with a lot of these younger feminists. They never want to admit that, the dangers of women. They never want to talk about how, like, you probably are more vulnerable when you are around people that you do not expect or suspect to bring you harm. Okay. And let's deal with the numbers as well. Did you guys know that a Black woman is more likely to take a gun and unalive a man or woman or a child? Okay. You are more likely to be unalived by a Black woman than you are a white male. We have higher rates of violence than men. Okay. So when we factor that in, and we factor in, we have the largest, according to the stats, we have the largest lesbian population. We have the largest, so, by default, we would have the largest number of, of people that are in DV situations, So let's get into it, right? Work in Progress says, I like some of what Candace Owens says. Her delivery is just usually way off. Typically. Did you want to say anything before we moved on, Ren?
No, I agree with you 100%. It is disturbing to have to agree with her, but she is definitely on point with this one.
Yeah, because for me, it's like it's disturbing to agree. If you're on point, if you're right, I'm principled. So no matter who is right, I'm going to say if they're right or not. I don't have an issue with saying someone that I don't necessarily agree with or like is right about something, because I'm principle driven, not people driven. So I'm not on anybody's train, which is what annoys people about me most of the time. I ain't on nobody's train. I'm not riding any agendas. I'm riding on the theory of integrity. Okay.
I think that's a great point to make, because I do think we tend to pick sides. And for me, I will say Candace is on point about a lot of things at times, but what I find disturbing is always the extremist side of things. And I feel like I'm hoping as we move on and throughout this conversation, the conversation gets balanced, because what it often looks like is conservatives are always talking to a bunch of extremists. They never talk to the regular everyday person. And that's what I'm really worried about, is that we get hyper focused on these people, because like for you, a woman, there are women, just regular everyday women. We believe in feminism. We want those benefits, but we don't run around calling ourselves feminists just because of the negative connotations that surround it. Just like I don't call myself a Hebrew Israelite because of camp behavior and a lot of behaviors that I see in the community that are public facing. It doesn't look right. So that's why we call ourselves Torah keepers, or, we follow Christ, because there are some things you just don't want to be associated with because of the negative connotations. You know what I mean?
Yep. All right, let me go forward.
Not exactly a stunning statistic to say that when people are in relationships, period, whether those relationships are homosexual, whether they're
But
married,
you're
whether
saying that the sexual revolution.
Let me finish. I've let you try to explain how this is correlated to happiness, and I don't think it does. I actually think you're having a different debate right now. But yes, absolutely, it makes perfect sense that you are more likely in general when you are in a relationship, because people are driven by anger by people that they know, whether or not we're talking about boyfriend and girlfriend, girlfriend and girlfriend, a husband and a wife, a husband and a husband, or a wife and a wife. Yes, of course, the instances of domestic violence are going to take place when you're inside of a home. But the sexual revolution, encouraging women to give up their goods for free, which is what I'm speaking about, and encouraging men not to marry these women or to have long-term relationships, what I am saying is a direct contributor to their unhappiness, because women are giving up their goods for free and women are now entering the workplace, and that does not actually make them happy.
Okay, pause. Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
I'm hoping for a smart lesbian or a smart feminist.
Hello.
Hi there.
How are you? I'm Candace.
Nice to meet you. Julian, my pronouns are they, them. It's very interesting to think of a woman to...
I'm sorry?
I said the outfits aren't making me hopeful.
Oh, okay. I'm trying.
Think about the gender binary. It's, how do we place value on human beings in general? And so when we think about, placing value, that comes from a place of power, right? So I think let's select like the Victorian era. You have this dominant group of people coming from white supremacy, deciding who gets to have a proper status in the world. And so that is already like taking human beings and devaluing them. And so what the sexual revolution did was to help people seek out empowerment, which increased value, no matter the gender. So when it comes to sexual revolution, let's look at one contribution is sex education. I'm actually an educator. I teach sociology and LGBTQ studies. And I have absolutely seen the positive outcome with the sexual revolution and sex education and seen people empower themselves. And with that comes safety when it comes to decreasing STIs, abuse, sexual assault. Again, people get to empower themselves of all genders. And I know earlier you mentioned about violence amongst lesbians and sapphic community, which I do identify within. All genders can be subjected to violence.
That was the point I was making. So I wasn't sure of how her claim was relating to what we were talking about, whether or not it makes people happy or unhappy. Relationships are obviously a ground where there can be violence.
I guess I could just wrap it up by saying, like, if we all have access to like sex education through the incredible work of feminists through the sexual revolution, we are able to gain access to information and gain skills to create an equitable society, egalitarian within our relationships, whether it be platonic or romantic. I'm so grateful for those feminists who have fought for us so we can gain those spaces and create a healthier society.
Okay, are you a believer in the government doing everything that it can to make people happy?
So when it comes, as someone that teaches in the public sector, I understand the concern when it comes to what is a teacher, what kind of information they're providing to the students. I do believe that we, as a teacher, I should be able to give that sort of information. Again, I teach college students. One of my claims is I believe that we should mandate sex education amongst college students. So yes, I do want the state, I would like the government to give us those.
Can we just stop for a second? I don't understand. Okay, here's the thing. Feminism and sexual orientation, I understand that there should be a layer of that, right? Because people should be able to express. But like, why is it that people who may or may not identify with their freaking chromosomes always have this thing about pushing sex education? Nobody needs an education about sex outside of what does what. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what is wrong with the biology of sex that we were taught? Why is it that these people need to teach children how to interbate and teach them about, different? What is this? What is this? You got something to say?
I am so glad you said that, because when she even just brought up the idea of egalitarianism, I was like, what does that have to do with sex ed?
Nothing. That has nothing to do with sex ed. Nothing. But I'm telling you, like, there is something going on, and I don't know what it is. I have a theory. I'm not at liberty to say right now. Maybe the next time I have a behind the scenes live, and if people want to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But there is something wrong intellectually with a lot of people surrounding this topic. There is something wrong. Okay. Work in Progress says, I'm just asking about how is Candace qualified on this topic? I mean, probably because she's a woman. I think that any woman should be qualified to speak on feminism, since the heart of feminism is for the protection and upward mobility of women. She's a woman. So, I mean, like, honestly, if I was going to question anybody's legitimacy in getting into this conversation, it would be the person that does not know that she's a woman, or that decided that she's no longer a woman. You know what I'm saying? That's just what I think, baby. Okay, let's go. Or did you want to say something?
No, I was going. You're right there with me, because I was going to say, or transitioning into a man, because why do you care about feminism? You don't even want to identify as a woman. So I don't think the fact that you want to be a man, you don't care about the progression of the rights of women is well, I might be taking that a bit far, but yeah, I'll be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Resources so we can implement that curriculum.
Okay. Are you consider yourself a feminist, I'm assuming?
A queer feminist. There's
Wait, what? All right. Queer feminist. I'm sure she's going to ask for a definition. Let's go.
There's variations, right?
What is a queer feminist as opposed to a feminist, just so I understand?
Well, so I heavily believe in queer theory. So, the gender.
Y'all, does anybody know what queer theory? Like, we have a theory for people's. What is this? What y'all? Am I just old? Because y'all can tell me.
Say the same thing. I must be out of touch, because I don't know what this is.
Am I just old? Like, queer theory? What is going on? Okay, let's go.
Binary that we understand, it comes from colonization. So someone who is mixed race, family from Mexico, we have the Moches in Mexico, which is an indigenous tribe. They believed in gender fluidity. And then you have European colonizers coming who dismantle that. And now everything that we understand when it comes to gender is a Western lens. So from a queer...
That is not true, okay? Gender has been defined in ancient civilizations with proof. And I've said this before, like, when they say that gender is a social construct, here's what I will say about that. And if anybody wants to challenge this, I'm absolutely oh shoot. Okay, let me see about this. But I'm absolutely open to hear that, But here's my thing. Gender roles are the social construct. Your actual gender is not the social construct. However, I will say that most gender roles were socially constructed based on gender performance or gender functionality, right? So when you say men, the men go to work and the women stay home. Okay, so that social construct would definitely make sense, especially in a less evolved, a less advanced time set, right? Because women, sometimes we got periods, we have children, we nurse children, we do all this kind of stuff. So because of that, a gender role was socially constructed surrounding our, a lot of, the functionality of what we do. Those of us that were born with XX chromosomes and, stuff like that. So yeah, a role was socially constructed surrounding gender, right? But even thinking about gender roles of today, that's evolved, right? So gender roles have kind of changed a little bit with the evolution of time and the advancement of things. So women don't necessarily need to be protected from bears all day, or, intruders coming into the village, because we have guns, right? We have security systems, we have all that. So even when we talk about, what your need for a man was 100 years ago and what a man's need for a woman was 100 years ago. It's all changed, right? So men don't necessarily need somebody cooking, cleaning, ironing, and so on, and all this kind of stuff, and bearing their children. Why? Because they can go adopt, they can cook for themselves, they can order DoorDash, they can get a seamstress, all those things. Same thing with women. Women don't necessarily need a provider, a physical protector, and all these kind of things. So yeah, roles in society have, socially changed, but like a woman is still a woman. A man is still a man. What do you got to say, Rim?
Sorry, I agree. I just think it's interesting that these same people never question the sexuality of other animals, plants, species. They can clearly define the difference between a male and female, whatever anything else is. But now when it comes to the human species, we don't know what people are. It's just whatever you decide you want to be.
Mm-hmm. George says Candace's husband is gay and she's the breadwinner. I don't know if her husband is gay or not, and I don't know, she might be the breadwinner, but that's again testament to how gender roles have changed. Because like, do we want to talk about the Black community and who's typically the breadwinners? I don't think so. I don't think we want to do that. So because it is social, and I would say, to be honest, for the Black community, it's not just social. Okay, it's cultural and choices as well. So I get what I get what you're saying, but I know that a lot of people take issue with her having a white husband. I'm just not one of those people, even though she's not my favorite person or whatever. But I'm not gonna sit up here and enforce Jim Crow rules on people, especially Black women who have limited choices. Did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. Work in Progress says, obviously I noticed she is a woman and I wasn't speaking on being a feminist. I was speaking on being a lesbian. How do you speak on being a lesbian or a lesbian in a relationship if you've never been one? Okay, so I'm definitely a non-lesbian who speaks based on statistics. So you may hear me talk about the violence and I didn't know, thank you for clearing that up because I didn't know. I thought that you meant how was she qualified to have the conversation for this. So thanks for clearing that up. So here's what I say. As a non-lesbian, okay, I speak on lesbian relationships from an analytical perspective, right? Like how, we speak on all relationships. Like I would speak on grandparents or parents before I became either one. I spoke on marriage before I became married, right? I spoke on a lot of things based on the information that was available. So statistically, according to the CDC, according to Pew Research Center, according to just talking to a lot of lesbians, okay, DV is off the chain. So I think that anybody that has access to the information, anybody who has access to the data and that, can cognitively relay what they're reading can speak on the statistics. Now, can she speak inside the relationship? No, she can't speak inside anybody's relationship, but it doesn't take a sexuality or a gender to actually, pull the data, which I don't think that she's, necessarily speaking on the mechanics of a lesbian relationship. We could only speculate or go off of what we view, A lady says she worked very hard. I'm sorry, go ahead, baby.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think I might have a bit of a delay, but I was just going to say, I think that's really when people come from that perspective, I almost feel like it's a way of dismissing people's opinions and trying to get them to shut up. Because when you talk about just relationship dynamics, relationships that we have, whether they are friendships, situationships, workships, your relationship with your coworkers, even your intimate relationships, right? They're not just based on sex. Your whole the whole sum of your relationship is not about you having sex. And I think a lot of times people diminish relationships that way when you're just, the sex is the main component to everything. And I'm just really starting to believe that everybody today, not everybody, but a lot of people obviously have some type of sex demon on them. Because listen, why is everything about sex? You can't even get into how you all get along as a couple, your relationship, your ability to communicate with one another. That is not just based on sex, because what happens when you get older And if you're not able to perform, or in some situations when you're younger, God forbid, you could have some type of accident or something that prevents you from being sexual. Does that mean your ability to be in a solid, meaningful relationship just it totally ends because you can't perform?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Island Girl said, I don't care about the race or sexuality of her husband. Candace is phony and a grifter. Novella says Candace's husband is a Rothschild and a businessman. Okay. So, but that is absolutely true. A lot of people don't know that. And I do feel like some commentary about Candace's marriage has more to do with people's personal preferences on, you know, her political leanings, and whether or not, you know, you care or like or don't like, interracial, you know, situations going on. But him being a Rothschild and his dad is Lord Michael Farmer. So he is inheriting a British metals situation, honey. Okay. His like he's literally heir to the Rothschilds dynasty. So anything that he has, anything that Candace has financially is paled in comparison to what he has. But she has more clout, you know, in American culture. But if you go over to, you know, British culture, he's a baron. And he's a member of, you know, the House of Lords, and, you know, yeah. So
I'm glad you're reviewing this, because you just made me, when you just said that, now I didn't know that she was married to one. Not that it makes any difference to my perceptions of her political leanings, but it did just make me realize how I can say that I'm even guilty of diminishing her based on her conservatism. And that's not fair to her as an individual, as a person, as a woman, just a being, period. So this is a good discussion. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, but it is hard to do, right? It's hard to do when you don't like the person, or you feel like you might be diametrically. He said he's a peer lord, not a lord. He is the son of Lord Michael Farmer. Okay. Who is a baron. So I don't know what you're talking about, Muffin. But anyway, I'm not here to defend either one of them. I just like to tell the truth to the best of my ability. And for some people, that's offensive because sometimes it goes against, you know, a talking point. And, you know, the truth kind of destroys talking points and it like pisses people off. And I tend to do that. I'm not trying to, though. Let's go. Let me see. Well, since her husband is old money, Candace said she will male worship until the cows come. And she does. She absolutely is a male worshiper. I will never forget her sitting her ass up here defending Nick Cannon having 100 kids all over the damn globe.
She did.
And, oh my God, yes. Oh yes.
With conservatism.
She exactly. She defended him. You know, she defends Kanye. She was pulling her pro-black. Look, she even went to the welfare, took black men out of the house. She sure did. Oh, baby, when they say she's a grifter, baby, I definitely understand. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
AJ says he's also a part of the Daily Wire. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. I completely forgot about that. Yeah. Oh, baby, Candace is fired. That's true. I forgot about that, CJ. She defends Andrew Tate. She's lately, and okay, I'm nuanced on this. Not nuanced, but I'm waiting to see the fallout of this. She's literally has been standing in defense of what's the fat nasty Hollywood scandal, Me Too scandal. What's his name?
Harvey Weinstein.
Yes, she's defending him. So some of the women that have come out against him have been found to be fraudulent. Okay, that's true. But she is basically willing to tear down the whole Me Too apparatus for him. You know, now it's one thing if you say, okay, this hoe right here lying, this person is lying or whatever. I don't have a problem with people who want to, separate, fact from fiction and all this type of shit. But yeah, oh yeah, she will defend some dusty ass men. She definitely will.
Don't even think women exist, I'm guessing.
I think everyone should be empowered to figure out their identity and explore the language that best describes themselves. So freedom, America, right? America, freedom. And I want to believe in that when it comes to identity. Right. Everyone should have the freedom to decide how they want to identify, as long as they're not causing harm. But that's where we get into the debate, what is harm?
So just, again, to be clear, to go back to this claim, we are debating female happiness.
Mm-hmm.
You are saying you do not identify as a female.
I identify with all gender expressions. So from masculinity to femininity. So
I'm just saying, are you just saying that as a part of queer theory, you're debating whether or not women are happier after the sexual revolution? I'm just trying to understand, because it seems like you're debating queer theory as opposed to female.
I believe all genders benefit from the sexual revolution.
You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Okay. Wait a minute. Work in progress says she has completely changed her opinion on Orange 47. And I know how people are with that. I don't care about that. I really don't. That doesn't bother me because I'm not Trump triggered. Because I feel like if you decide that he's doing something that you can't support, I think more people should be able to say, hey, I was with this guy and he did. I think people should feel comfortable changing their political leanings, because if you think about it, nobody's comfortable with saying Joe Biden is trash, because for many ignorant people, that means that you're saying Trump is great. So being able to have autonomy and say, yo, I voted for him. I thought that he knew that's what Tasha did. Tasha was like, yo, I voted for Trump. And then she was like, yo, maybe I made a mistake. People should be able to change their minds without being told that they're a grifter, especially when it comes to politics. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to, you should be able to change your mind. So I don't necessarily, which I understand, a lot of people, have that issue or whatever, but I think she should be able to change her mind if she wants to, I think so. Not Q saying you're the weakest link, go back to your seat. Taptalicious, you identify as a rich white male. Well, I want you to co-sign for me then, okay? But they just voted her out, which they probably should have. Because really, once Candace said, that you don't identify as a female, but you want to have this, conversation. I mean, that was kind of like topping her. A lady 747 says many people are okay with saying Joe is trash. I don't find that. I honestly, a lady 747, I don't think so. In Black circles, you're not allowed to criticize Joe. If you criticize Joe, they feel like you're automatically in support of Trump. You're anti-Black and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, girl, no. And I'll tell you how I know, from a very personal reason. When I introduced sleeper cells and went through and pulled receipts on Kamala, and I'm talking about 2018, pulled receipts on Kamala, Joe, and all those people, everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. Nobody had a problem with it. What I said in that video was that in a few years, when they are able to pit her against Donald Trump, people are going to attack me for this opinion. It's in the video that I made in 2018. Yep. And sure enough, come 2020, come, a couple of years later, if the same videos, the same information, the same receipts, people have an issue with. Okay. I remember you could not even acknowledge that Joe's daughter said that he was trying to touch her and look at her in the shower. You couldn't even acknowledge that, because that meant that you were, for Trump. It's a weird paradigm that we're in. It's weird. Let me see. Tatalicious, I was banished for not supporting Kamala. It doesn't mean that you support Wig. Thank you. I'm telling you, people that I talk to closely, I do not feel comfortable with stating truth or fact of fiction, or fact from fiction, and all this kind of stuff when it comes to politics. I feel like we got to go back to how it was back in the day when you didn't talk about politics publicly. because people use politics to literally judge your own life, you know? Work in Progress says, so what I'm saying is being taken as a negative. No, nothing's being taken as negative, honey. She said, I wasn't implying she can't change her mind. I just pointed out that she had changed her opinion. Oh, no. I wasn't taking that as a negative. I was acknowledging that a lot of people do take that as a negative because I've seen that a lot. You didn't put a vibe on it. You didn't put a vibe on it at all. Mm-mm. I mean, and if you felt like I was going that direction, my bad, because I wasn't.
Yes, text and talk doesn't always translate well.
Yeah, text doesn't always translate well, and that's something to remember. And sometimes I talk too fast and too much, child. Okay.
Hello.
I'm Zena.
Zena, very much like your name.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Can we start with the beginning? Do you identify as a female?
I identify as a woman, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So I do want to get back to your premise. You're saying that women have been devalued, right, by the sexual revolution. This kind of presumes two things. One, that there has been a loss of worth, right, for women. So you're saying that women have, as human beings, lost worth. Women who, prior to their sexual revolution, were worth more than women today.
I would say that, yes, women have devalued themselves by becoming overtly sexual. That's my claim. So, I mean, also according to and let's not remove this from the other part of the claim, which it has made women infinitely less happy.
Right. So are you saying, but you're saying that according to you, women have been devalued?
Not according to me. According to the time in which people are getting married, how difficult it is for people to find a partner that's willing to commit to them. And I think that's in large part due to the fact that women are offering sex for free because it was a major component of the sexual revolution was this idea.
So a woman's worth is tied to her sexuality.
It's not tied to, well, absolutely. If you're going to be having multiple partners, you are going to be devaluing yourself.
You're worth less as a human being.
Not as a human being, just, in terms of trying to have a partnership and a productive relationship. Certainly men are not going to be clamoring to have a relationship with somebody when there's the market is growing them.
A man's response to your actions is what defines your worth, right?
Yeah, well, I would say that I would argue.
Oh, did she just trip her up? What you think, Ren? You're on mute in case you don't know.
No, I'm sorry. I had to step. I'm back. I need a minute.
Okay, so let me get full context again. And I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this whole thing because we got our Rich Girl Club manifestation meeting in like 1 hour. So, and this is 1 hour and 38 minutes. So I know we're not gonna finish.
And have devalued themselves by becoming overtly sexual. That's my claim. So I mean,
Oh, okay. So yeah, I want to know that. Let me do some polls. Do you guys feel like women who over sexualize themselves have devalued themselves? Drop a blue heart if you feel like women have devalued themselves through hypersexualization. Drop a white heart if you don't. Drop a white heart if you don't.
Also, according to and let's not remove this from the other part of the claim, which it has made women infinitely less happy.
Right. So are you saying, but you're saying that according to you, women have been devalued?
Not according to me. According to the time in which people are getting married, how difficult it is for people to find a partner that's willing to commit to them. And I think that's in large part due to the fact that women are offering sex for free because it was a major component of the sexual revolution was this idea.
So a woman's worth is tied to her sexuality.
It's not tied to, well, absolutely. If you're going to be having multiple partners, you are going to be devaluing yourself.
You're worth less as a human being.
No, that's jacked up to say that somebody is worth less as a human being. Now, that's a bit much. I hope Candace is, well, ain't no telling because Candace is weird, like with shit like this, but that's a very male identified position to say that
is
you're
red pill all day.
That's long. Red pill. That's red pill. Okay. Now, wow. And I think that Novella Dolphin is about to go with what I was saying. Novella says, I don't know why I really like that name. She says, if too many people have access to your time, energy, body, and emotions, it cheapens you. The more inaccessible you are, the more you increase your value. I agree with that, but I don't agree with the devaluing of a person as a human. But I do agree that there is a difference in the value of someone who has slept with 3,000 men or women, male or female, than someone who has just had a moderate number. I do believe that. I do believe that yeah, you're not going to line up next to me and you didn't fuck the whole football team times 10. I'm not, no. Mm-mm. And that's not male. That's not male identity. That's my identity, because I intentionally didn't fuck around. Okay. Because I thought I was too good. Okay. So it had nothing to do with me.
That's a whole separate conversation. Because that's raised, because I don't know if you heard her say this too, when she specifically said the sexual market value plays.
Yeah, that's exactly what she was doing. That's exactly what she was doing. Candace is Andrew Tate.
I see.
She's Andrew Tate. Simply the Best says, I disagree that it cheapens you, but I will say that it throws you off balance mentally. And that might in turn be what like makes you a less viable mate, because you've had so many experiences, you've had so many traumas, you've had so many things, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody, but I will say that I thought that I was too good to give multiple people access and too many people. That was just me. But I'm not, am I sitting there counting how many people the next woman slept with? Nope, because I don't give a damn. Not that serious. But when I talk about that, I talk about my own, I'm talking about me personally. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I think the viability conversation definitely comes into play here. And I think it's interesting that women, because, you know, you keep been talking about everybody's complaining about hoe culture. So, but on one hand, men complain about hoe culture, but they're out here wiping the hoes. They're out here doing
and they're the biggest participants.
Exactly. So I'm really wondering, do they really even care about these things? Because I've literally, if they have the complexion for the connection, if they're the right complexion for some of these men, they don't care how many bodies she has. So that's where I think some of this all is just it's just a way to make women feel bad about themselves, because no matter what you do, if you're too conservative and then you're too hoish, it's this, you're too this, you're always too much, you're always too something. So really, I think it's really just a game. And for me, when the conversation comes for Black women, it just seems like no matter who you are or what you're doing, there's always going to be some kind of way for them to come in and devalue you. And it really, I don't like to see women participating in it and engaging in it, because it's the same shit if you look at it. Because it's funny when they're talking about their so-called preferences, suddenly the body count doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
But she's not saying anything about that.
That is so true, Ren. I have to say that you are 100% on point with that. I definitely agree. And someone said this, and I don't know where the comment went. This right here. Women need to stop even mentioning their body count, because people wouldn't even know if they just kept quiet. Yeah, I agree 100%. And I would never like sit up there and go on a date with somebody, especially in the beginning. I don't care what stage. What happened in relationships outside, you know, of course there's basic stuff that you're going to talk about with a potential partner or whatever. But baby, we're not going to get into unless it's like, you know, orientation stuff or things. I just don't think that, because I'm not going to ask you how many bodies you got. Don't be in my bedroom business that was before you, and I'm not going to be in yours. That ain't nobody's business. I'm sorry. I just feel that way. Like, for real, like, what you want to know? You know what I'm saying? Like, because if you ask an ignorant motherfucker like me a question like that, I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. You know,
I'll tell you what else would be interesting. Just like she said, the body count devalues a woman. I would ask the same question now with children, or as they call weapons. So if you have two weapons in tow, does that devalue you as a woman as well? Because apparently a woman's sexual marketplace value drops if she's widowed, or if even if you were divorcee, you know.
Yeah, and essentially what are these men saying? They're saying that they decrease your value, right? Because if you say that because a 35-year-old woman has 2 children, that she is, you know, that her value is decreased because she has slept with men, right? You are saying that the risk of sleeping with you is too great. There's not a reason, like, you know what I'm saying? You're saying that sleeping with men takes away your value.
And it just becomes asinine and redundant, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That makes no sense. So there we go back to that conversation about the whore versions. They want whole versions.
They do. They want a virgin that has done porn for the last 15 years. They do. You can't tell me. They do. They want a whore on demand, but she's a virgin. You know, like, oh yeah, she can suck it down to the base. Oh, how you think she learned? You know, like it's really crazy. It's really crazy. And then when they get a virgin, what they do? Let's not even talk about it.
Yeah.
Not as a human being, just, you know, in terms of...
Huh?
I was just reading the comments. That's funny.
What?
But I just that, when we talk about the idea that these men just want virgins, do they really? Or do they only want them when it comes for Black women? So is it that Madonna whore complex when it comes to Black women? Are we just supposed to be chaste and just wait for them until, you're about 60, 80, 70, you're in Lou Rawls, you're ready to start making babies, some more babies at 77, then you're ready to settle down. We're just supposed to wait. We just keep ourselves chaste until they are ready.
Venus Williams came out and said that she was a virgin and waiting for her husband, right? She got dragged. She got dragged.
Really?
Yeah. She got dragged.
Oh.
Okay. And look, I remember in the Steppers community in Chicago, and I'm gonna fast forward to Princella's part because I know that we're not gonna get through this. And if anybody wants to go through the rest of it, we definitely can. But or we could finish up the rest of them on your channel if you want to, Rand. But we're gonna fast forward to Princella so that because we got to prepare for the manifestation meetup. But listen, this girl was, I want to say she was about 30-something years old, right? And she was not what you would consider conventionally attractive. So let me explain the Steppers community. Steppers community is the only place that I have seen where it's literally club life, right? You go out, these people go out 5, 6, 7 days a week, right? And this is the only environment where I've been in where you could be the baddest bitch in there, right? But you will get passed over for the girl that can dance real good. And that girl who can dance real good, she could look like a booger bear. She could be 732 pounds. Okay. She could be bald headed. Whatever. If she could move, the best dancers and the most attractive men wanted to dance with her. Now they might knock you down if you're the fine chick, at the end of the night, but it's literally all about the dance, right? But there was this girl and she was a good dancer, right? But it got around that she was a 30-something-year-old virgin. When they introduced that element of her being a virgin, it was all about that. And once somebody got her virginity, when I tell you her value decreased, it was like, it was really sad to watch. Like I had never seen the tables turn where, okay, she's the good dancer, but now because someone's broken her virginity, because everybody was trying once they found out, now don't nobody want to be bothered with her. Oh yeah, absolutely. A lady, you from Chicago? Yeah, in the Steppers community, older women are very popular. Okay, older women are very popular. You just got to know how to move. If you can dance, like you it. That's another place where the brokest, dustiest, don't have no money, got on some runt over shoes. If he could dance, they after him. So you know all about Tick Man them then, don't you, a lady? He locked up still, I think. Anyway, let's move forward and let her finish, and then we'll move to Princella's part.
Of trying to have a partnership and a productive relationship, certainly men are not going to be clamoring to have a relationship with somebody when there's the market is throwing them.
A man's response to your actions is what defines your worth, right?
Yeah, well, I would say that I would argue that what makes women actually happy is family. So if you're interrupting, so just to connect the dots for you, when women...
That's not true for every woman, though. Every woman is not that is for would you say that every woman is happy, or let me see, maybe I got the context wrong. Let me rewind it.
Right, for women. So you're saying that women have, as human beings, lost worth. Women who prior to their sexual revolution were worth more than women today.
I would say that yes, women have devalued themselves by becoming overtly
According
sexual. That's my claim. So I mean, also according to just, and let's not remove this from the other part of the claim, which that it has made women infinitely less happy.
Right. So are you saying, but you're saying that according to you, women have been devalued?
Not according to me. According to the time in which people are getting married, how difficult it is for people to find a partner that's willing to commit to them. And I think that's in large part due to the fact that women are offering sex for free, because it was a major component of the sexual revolution was this idea.
So a woman's worth is tied to her sexuality.
It's not tied to, well, absolutely. If you're going to be having multiple partners, you are going to be devaluing yourself.
You're worth less as a human being.
Not as a human being, just, in terms of trying to have a partnership and a productive relationship. Certainly men are not going to be clamoring to have a relationship with somebody when there's the market is growing them.
A man's response to your actions is what defines your worth, right?
Yeah, well, I would say that I would argue that what makes women actually happy is family. So if you're interrupting, so just to connect the dots for you, when women are having sex with multiple partners, it devalues them for men, right?
For men. So
yes. So
men define a woman's worth.
Well, I would say both of them kind of define one another's worth, because I think the ultimate goal for people to be happy is actually family.
Okay. Yeah. So you're saying in all cases, a woman...
The ultimate, like a lot of people, Ren, what do you think about that? I don't feel like a lot of women are necessarily, everybody isn't family driven.
No, they're not. And because I can think about women who actually have children who are not maternal, they are not nurturers, they basically have nothing to do with their children. Other people raise their children. So your ability to give birth and produce a family doesn't mean you're going to be family oriented. So I think
No, family don't make every woman happy. Sometimes family might make some women sick and sad.
Real talk.
Okay. JMM55 said, I was in that Steppers World in Detroit and used to travel to the Chi. You are not lying. Most of the men are dusties and old hoes. Tick Man locked back up again. Yes, he's locked back up. He caught a Fed case. I think he did like a couple of $1 million in PPP loans or something like that. We could do a whole little sit down about Tick Man. But since you were from Detroit, then Candace and Theo, they were really good dancers. They were young, but they were really good. I remember they used to come up all the time from Chicago. They were a good team.
That's how I like to be more fulfilled. Shows you be doing Tick Man show. The Tick Man thing.
Man, one of the steppers told me that I'm friends with. She was like, "Girl, you need to do a whole breakdown on Tick Man." I'm like, don't nobody really know him outside of Chicago though. But the story is very interesting. Like when you put all the dynamics in it, you know what, Ren? We were talking about my cherry files. The first time I did something like that was about the Steppers community. I created an online soap opera that was actually pretty popular for our for the community or whatever. And it was based on like the popular people in the Steppers community. And it'd be so funny because everybody thought I was talking about them. So when I would see them out, they'd be like, "Hey, that character Candy, is that me? Is that me?" I'm like, "Is that you?"
That's
so
hilarious.
Wait, I'd be like, "So wait, you was sucking dick outside of the clique? That's what you was doing?" Because that's what Candy was doing. Girl, I used to be a mess. Acme Listening Inc. Thank you so very much for the super chat. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am. So supportive.
In regards to family.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And this is going to work in all cases. You're saying there's no individual case in which a woman can feel, fulfilled without being tied to other people in the case of family.
I think there could be an exceptional case for everything. I think there are exceptional cases, but I think that if we all start trying to be the exception as opposed to recognizing the rule, which is that people in life are more fulfilled when they achieve a family unit and when they have children, women in particular, especially aspiring to children, then you are going to end up with a bunch of people who are unhappy because your job cannot replace the feeling of having a family.
So what you're saying is we need to look at every individual case and see what is going to fulfill you or what is going to, I guess, essentially predict your happiness more. Because if we look at, for example, the Nordic countries, right? These are countries, I'm talking about like Sweden, Denmark, right? These countries tend to be like, I think in the past 14 years, they've been ranked as the highest in happiness and marital satisfaction from women, right? And we see that they also have been the most open in regards to like, you know, sexual norms and you know, sexual roles, right? So, and we also see that there's less rates of like STDs reported. We see more, and that's also due to comprehensive sex education that's pushed in those countries. So we see that and that's like a direct result of the sexual revolution, right? So when we're seeing that direct reports of happiness, right, we don't have these same rates in America. In these countries that are more sexually open, why would we see like those rates in those type of countries?
So I think you might be referring to this sort of mass-produced study that was a part of like a behavioral science study, which said that women were the happiest women in the world were women that were actually unmarried and had careers. No, okay. Well, there was
reported happiness.
Okay, sure. I'm talking about the same thing. It was reported happiness, but it could be there's tons of studies. The point being is that in 2023, there was this massive scandal where they recognize that a lot of these studies that were being produced, behavioral science, was proven to be a complete fraud. And they were unable to reproduce these studies. And they also found that the data had been faked. The data that we can look at that I think shows, and you can let me know if you agree with this, if women, and under the imagination of the feminist umbrella, were really unhappy when they were in the home, and then entering the workforce has made women happier and infinitely feeling more secure about themselves, we could, I think, reasonably expect that there would have been a decrease in suicide rates amongst women.
You would have to go ahead and show how that correlation, right, is going to be a direct cause of women going into the workforce.
Okay, well, how can we, let's measure, then you have to give me a way that we can measure happiness. How can we measure happiness? So I would say suicide rates would be a good thing to look at. Drug, alcohol consumption would be a good thing. Of course, right?
But we would have to, we can say, I can say at this point in society, I don't think everyone's happy. I think there's a lot of things that we need to reconcile to society.
That's what I'm getting at.
Right,
So
but we have to look at the cause, right? Why are these things predicted, right? And for example, if we talk about men, there are a lot of things we can look at, right? That you know tend to predetermine suicide, right? But we can't say, oh, these two things are happening at the same time. This caused this other thing.
Yes, that's right. But I do think that we can objectively say that women who are committing suicide rates more than they were in the 1950s, like it has actually increased marginally. That's not a sign that us entering the workforce suddenly made us
How
all
is
very
it
happy.
a cause of the workforce?
We're also binge drinking at a higher rate.
How's this cause of
opioids at a higher rate?
How is this a cause of entering
Because I think women are being put on a pathway aspirationally.
But you're going to have to, you're saying
This is what I don't like in the conversation. Like, you can't let can we let the conversation flow naturally? Why is everybody so fucking mad? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, just like correlation doesn't equal causation. And I mean, like especially in terms of the Black community, I don't know where they get this idea, but I would say as the average American, if you think about just the average working Joe, even back in the day, the average American was not sitting at home while her husband was out plowing the fields. I don't know where they get this idea that women were happier because they were sitting at home bearing children and just like they were June Cleaver. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Everybody had to work. So I'm just like, what is she talking about?
Right. Exactly. Like, we have to be able to make some sort of correlation, though. To like deny all correlations is just crazy. Okay, that's absolute crazy. All right. Let's see. Stars above the Emerald Forest. Thank you so much, Muffin. She says, so high suicide rates in women is caused by not having a man and children. Kansas needs to show the stats. That I don't understand like how that could be. Okay. I just do not understand how it could be that you make that correlation that women, like, come on now. Like, girl, shut your ass up. Hold on, let me rewind a little bit to where they had the fact check on the screen.
But it could be there's tons of studies. The point being is that in 2023, there was this massive scandal where they recognized that a lot of these studies that were being produced, behavioral science, was proven to be a complete fraud. And they were unable to reproduce these studies. And they also found that the data had been faked. The data that we can look at that I think shows, and you can let me know if you agree with this, if women, and under the imagination of the feminist umbrella, were really unhappy when they were in the home, and then entering the workforce has made women happier and infinitely feeling more secure about themselves, we could, I think, reasonably expect that there would have been a decrease in suicide rates amongst women.
You would have to go ahead and show how that correlation, right, is going to be a direct cause of women going into the workforce.
Okay, well, how can we, let's measure, then you have to give me a way that we can measure happiness. How can we measure happiness? So I would say suicide rates would be a good thing to look at. Drug, alcohol consumption would be a good thing to look at. Of course, right? But we would have to, we can say, I can say at this point in society, I don't think everyone is happy. I think there's a lot of things that we need to reconcile in society. That's what I'm getting at. Right, so but we have to look at the cause, right? Why are these things predicted, right? And for example, if we talk about men, there are a lot of things we can look at, right? That tend to predetermine suicide, right? But we can't say, oh, these two things are happening at the same time. This caused this other thing. Yes, that's right. But I do think that we can objectively say that women who are committing suicide rates more than they were in the 1950s, like it has actually increased marginally.
Okay, so this fact check says the suicide rates amongst women is statistically unchanged since the 1950s. Okay, so since the 1950s, suicide for women was 5.6 per 100,000 compared to now it being 5.9. So Candace, girl, and like trying to equate that to children and stuff like that, especially if we're talking about the 1950s, right? Where women had limited options, where women had limited roles in society, where you literally can go and pull up videos of women speaking like at a Miss America contest saying women should not have jobs. We need to stay home and bake cookies and sew pants. You know what I'm saying? Like women literally sounding like Stepford wives, which is crazy because I do see a lot of push from a lot of pick-me-shas, very similar to Candace, who basically say that, this is what a woman needs to be doing. They're literally pushing for a Stepford wife situation, and Stepford wives was it was a very sinister thing. Like a Stepford wife was like it was like women had their freaking brains washed and were replaced with like robots. Like it wasn't meant to be real, And that's true too. A lady 747 says statistics also state that childless women are happier. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I don't know. And I'm somebody that, look, I love doing traditional things. Okay. In what I consider my tradition. And that's when another thing that people need to realize is saying that you're traditional in 2025. What does that look like? Because it don't look like the same as saying that you're a traditional in 1914. The traditions have changed.
I want to know, who are they talking about? Because you talk about, she keeps saying, and I noticed for some reason she keeps referencing the 1950s as if this was some kind of golden era, particularly for Black people. But I would even just say as like the everyday average American, because even right now, if we talk about the everyday average Joe, does not make $100,000. And I think people keep forgetting these statistics when they're talking about these things, and they want to make it sound like we just totally fucked up and we messed up a golden era, and we should get back. And if we just somehow get back to rearing children and marrying and doing all these things, everything is going to be great again. America is going to be great again, as if it was great in the 50s. So it depends on who you're talking to or about. Because if you're talking about a white male who is fully ensconced into the upper middle class or the middle class period, perhaps America was great for him. But that still isn't the average American's experience. And I just don't think that people really have a firm grasp on reality and what really has been going on the streets that just at ground level for the everyday average Joe, Nyla. And then I also would bring up to the point, there have always been barren women. There have always been women who have not been able to produce children. So does that mean, including myself, that I'm just walking around a miserable mess? And as if we don't go create families of our own or a sense of belonging, because I think as human beings, by us being social creatures, some of us do, the average person does have a desire to belong to some type of group. and you can create that, you can have that. But the idea that every woman that is able to have children is motherly and matronly and she's just some paragon of virtue is also misleading.
That's very, very true. I appreciate that. Stars Above the Emerald Forest, thank you for the super chat. She says, I have heard a man say that women being on antidepressants is because they are not married with children. I have heard them same niggas, okay? Niggas and crackers saying that alike, okay? Listen, Candace, like this idolization of the 1950s is very sick to me, especially when you think in terms of, you know, the law and women back then, how like the law literally did not protect women from like domestic violence, did not protect people from molestation, did not protect a lot of women from sexual harassment, did not protect women from being treated fairly in the workplace. The mainstream advertisements were so sexist, and not even, you know, and primarily against white women, right? Because Black women weren't necessarily seen in the way that we are seen today, right? So the standard for the American woman in the 1950s was a white woman, and that white woman was destroyed in the media, completely destroyed. And that was a time when it was okay. Like I remember Taz was reviewing some old stuff surrounding DV, right? On the cover of Jet magazine, they were discussing, you know, women who were getting beaten violently at home. And within the article, you could tell that you were in a different time, right? Because it included the police's apathy towards a wife that was crying out for help as her husband beat her. You know what I mean? The whole, think about the advertisements for women during that time. Lysol in your vagina to clean it because the vagina is such a bad place. Think about how disrespectful and the attack on, you know, our bodies, who we were, and all this kind of stuff. So it makes me wonder, why does she fantasize with such a time outside of maybe the affiliation with the Rothschilds through her husband, who we know that family absolutely led so many agendas in America against, you know, men, women, and children. Like, who is she working for? Because even when people call her a grifter, right? I don't view them necessarily as grifters because I don't view them through the same lens that, you know, I view regular people. These people push agendas. So for whatever her removal of support from Trump is, it has something to do with some other agenda that they're going to use her for, as far as I'm concerned. Tiff says Candace Owens is overcompensating for what she lacked from her parents growing up. Candace is weird sometimes. Like, she is very, like, this is a weird bitch. Like, she really is. Sage says, if her idea of the 1950s was all that, her behind wouldn't be a content creator. And she most likely would not be married to her white Rothschild's husband because she's not the pedigree his family would accept. And, you know, she definitely will be somewhere sewing patches on the knees of her husband's denim jeans. Okay, that's what she would be doing. She'd be somewhere making tea cakes. Because again, what's traditional has changed, you know.
Originally, that's not a sign that us entering the workforce suddenly made us.
How
all
is
very
it
happy.
a cause of the workforce?
We're also binge drinking at a higher rate.
How's this cause of
opioids at a higher rate?
How is this the cause of entering?
Because I think women are being put on a pathway aspirationally.
But you're gonna have to. You're saying you think this, right? But where's the cause? Like, you're not you know, substantiating a claim. You're saying this is what I think. I'm seeing two.
Okay, pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you so much.
This is a great job. Great job. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm Nikki.
Nice to meet you.
So when we're talking about the value of women on a societal scale and how we view each other, right? When you're devaluing us, you're objectifying us. And follow me, I promise. But rape rates have gone down by about half in the last 20 years, right? So
Let's talk about, like, this is a very irresponsible statement, right? She says grape rates have gone down over the last 20 years, right? So let me give you guys some information, but first I'm going to read this fact check, right? The fact check. Okay, I'm not talking about my hips. Check, not fat check. Says grape rates over the last 20 years are difficult to track because the FBI changed the definition in 2013, which led to a significant increase in cases. On top of that, when you have all of these places that have the upwards of 10 years of untested grape kits, you cannot qualify grape. As in the fact that this grape and DV, okay, crimes against women are the lowest reported crimes ever. You have to literally pull women's teeth a lot of times to get them to tell and report these things. Okay. I agree with that. Jubilee is a debate platform, not really a conversation. That's true. But yeah, let's see what she's gonna say. Ren, did you want to stop?
No, I'm good.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tatalicious.
If you're saying we're less valuable now, why wouldn't we be suffering at a higher rate?
So is the argument that you're making, just so I understand, that because women are giving up sex for free, they're not being raped?
Every study shows rape is not correlated with just sexual gratification. It is a power structure.
Okay.
So it is about objectifying and abusing women when you rape them, not about whether or not you want sex. What I am saying is that women are less objectified, so therefore we are being raped less.
Okay, so you think...
Is she serious, y'all? Am I misunderstanding Ren? Because like she has got to understand how underreported, and then the situation with those grape kits, 10 years, 10-year log is crazy. I mean, lag is crazy. What you say, honey?
Now you're not misunderstanding. You hear what you hear.
She sounds stupid as shit.
That in today's society, because this is pretty wild for me. In the 1950s, you're saying women were more objectified than today in the land of OnlyFans, the Kardashian clan, and women that are essentially putting up their boobs and butts for free on Instagram. You're saying we finally have achieved less objectification, where women can't even get onto an advertising. You can't even advertise a bag without them having to be naked in order for them to get a career as a model. You're saying, oh, great, we've achieved actually less objectification.
So I'm not trying to suggest that I think that the over-commodification of women's bodies is positive. But what I am saying is that when you're going to the 1950s, that we shouldn't put this glazed look of, oh, it was so happy. We had single income households and we got to stay home. We also had a pill popping problem. We also were viewed as maids. Like, we were seen as a house appliance far more than we were as people. And so when you have that kind of objectification where you are in a subservient position, I think we're facing a different form today. But I think that rape is a signifier of a contradiction to your statement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense, but I do want to rebut it on a couple of points. So first, I just want to say, suggesting that objectification has gone downward since the 1950s is wild. That's just a firm no. That is not the truth, and you know that's not true.
Wait, so do you feel like
hold on, let me answer your second thing. Okay. Second thing, you then brought up, okay, women were at home, but they were pill popping. Well, you then have to acknowledge we're actually popping more pills now, right? So we have actually increased our amount of pill popping. Women are having overdoses on opioids. And on top of that, since I think 1999, by rate, we are increasing our opioid use compared to men. So women are not popping pills less because we're going into the workforce. That's actually not true at all either. We're also, like I said to you, consuming alcohol more and binge drinking more than we did in the 1950s, which is why I was trying to get her to say, we need to look at actually give me any reasonable metric of how we can define happiness. Because it's hard, right? Are you happy? Yes or no?
Sure, but wait, hold on. We're actually avoiding what my original point was about rape being the signifier.
Okay, pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you.
Thank
nice
God,
to meet you.
He was a weirdo.
Yeah, super weirdo. I'm going to. Yeah, like that was like the dumbest shit that I have heard in a long time. So
okay,
let me fast forward. I look, I saw a little bit of this girl. This girl is dumb as hell. I'm pretty sure she didn't get a chance to talk to you. When I tell you she dumb, like I mean in epic proportions. But let me find Princella. Okay, here she go. Let's go here.
We live under a matriarchy, not a patriarchy. Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Princella, the Queen Maker.
I love that.
So you say we live in a matriarchy.
Right.
Can you give me the definition of patriarchy?
Yes. Well, the patriarchy is the idea that the system, our system in America, is being run by men, and that women are having to exist under a system that immediately disadvantages them because men are behind it. And I disagree with that pointedly. I think actually we're living in a society where people are being very much influenced socially and politically by women.
Okay, so the denotative definition of patriarchy is father rule, and where positions of government are held majorly by men, where women are largely excluded. So 125 House of Representatives are female, and that's only about 25%.
Right.
And only about 28% make up Senate, and 3.3% of Congress up until this date have ever been women. So by denotative definition, we literally live in a patriarchy.
Yes. So I disagree with that. So I think what this gets to, which is actually an important part of the conversation, is that people always think that where there is disparity, there's somehow inequality. And I actually reject that entirely. I think it's just a difference in what we're interested in. I think we're
That's irresponsible, because most likely if there's a disparity, there is a lack of equality, more than likely. I don't know, I could be wrong, but just my observation.
I agree.
Logically wired, interested in different careers. And just because if we looked in the fashion industry and said, oh, well, it's being dominated by women, it wouldn't mean that, okay, well, that means.
But it's not.
That the fashion industry is a matriarchy and men have no sense. It just means
that's almost a bad example, because the fashion industry is actually dominated by men, right?
It is.
Women are the models. Yeah, that was horrible. Men are literally running the fashion industry completely.
Have no ability to communicate how they feel in the fashion industry. I literally think that those numbers show that we're just biologically different. So I actually think politically, women have shown that they have a lot more power than men have. And I'm talking about just in terms of political movements. The most recent I can think of is the Me Too movement, right? If a bunch of women get together and complain about a man and refer to the patriarchy and scream, generally speaking, let me know if you agree, the media will celebrate that. If a bunch of men got together and were shrieking and speaking about women, generally speaking, the media would call them all white supremacists and say that we had a misogyny problem and that things were really wrong in society. Women are allowed to be more vocal in general about problems than men are.
Well, let me speak to that. When we're talking about government and media, these are two different things. So under the denotative definition of a patriarchy, by the percentages that are occupied in the government, which is majority male, defines us as a patriarchy. Now, what it comes to for capitalism, for marketing purposes and control, for capital and revenue, that is a totally different conversation. But who's making the laws? I don't think that women are the ones voting to have their reproductive rights taken away, where you have rape, incest, and all of these things excluded to force women to be able to have. I don't think women in government would largely vote against their own interests.
Shit, I do. What you think, Ren?
I think they absolutely would, depending on, the motivation and the money.
Right. And then like, even with stuff like this, I think there's a context issue. Those women voting against what she would consider their interest, right? Here's an example. Okay, since it's one of those triggering things that everybody, likes to see black and white with no gray area. Okay, voting against your interests as a woman. So some would say that if you didn't vote for Kamala, you were voting against your interests, right? Because she's, they say that she's for the protection of women's rights. That's what people say. others would say that voting for Kamala is voting against your interest, because Kamala believes that the interest of womanhood includes men with dresses, includes, you know, men in prison needing a sex change so that they can go to female prisons. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's nuance. So to say that, you know, these women wouldn't vote against their interest, it depends, you know, that depends on a lot. What are the interests and who's qualifying it? Some women may come from a Christian evangelical standpoint and just be completely anti-birth control, anti-abortion, and that's their best interest.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So like, it really does depend on the person. It's really subjective, wouldn't you say?
And regional, because some of those people really do vote the way their constituency wants them to. So a lot of these people are voting based on electability and what do I need to vote? What does my vote need to be to get back in office? To hold on to political power, where do I need to align politically? So yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Right. And then just like there may be some mothers that live in California who have had to deal with their daughters being inside of a gym, you know, a gym bathroom or gym showers with a man. And so their vote for Trump could possibly be because they feel like, you know, their daughters being in rooms with males, or, you know, men who identify as women or whatever, they might be voting for that. You know, that's why I really hate the way that people weaponize people's political views against them. So like, if you're from Chicago and you've been affected by illegal immigration adversely as a Black person living in a sanctuary city, a sanctuary state, that has been that way for over 20 years, you might look at them differently. You know, you might feel differently about illegal immigration, right? And so you may not necessarily personally like dude, but you have been affected. So you might vote for that, you know, vote that way or whatever. And so what do people say? Mainly, you know, our people and people who can't understand that people can have their own mind or whatever will say that, oh, you're voting against your interest. Well, what if my interest is retaining, you know, jobs for my community or jobs for American? That could be my interest. You know what I mean? And on the other hand, some people's interest could be the right to have an abortion, right? The right to have birth control. You know what I'm saying? So this election season it was very, very polarizing and very, very nuances, because there were things on each side that didn't necessarily correlate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, and I think we would be foolish to negate the aspect of the lobbyists as well, and how that money influences these politicians as well.
Oh, absolutely. That money definitely influences. Definitely. Like even like the families who were affected, the people who had their family members like unalived by illegals, they might vote differently than a person that hasn't, or that a person that has a family full of illegals. You know what I'm saying? They're going to vote different. So it's like, I just wish that the conversations could have like maturity, you know, but they can't, because it's like, pick a side, nigga.
Yeah. Or I own a company full of illegals, and that cheap labor benefits me. So when you take your ass down there and vote, you better vote for the interests of these companies here, because the farming industry or whatever, the meat packing industry, we're counting on you to vote for these people to stay here.
Right. Or if I have a scholarship and I am working for a company that is implementing DEI policies everywhere, if that is, you know, where my job is going to be at, that's where my interests are. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's super nuanced. It's super nuanced, but people oversimplify it, in my opinion. And I think that both Princella and Candace sometimes oversimplify these matters, because they both have an agenda. They both have an agenda.
Because it's majority male, patriarchy.
I think love that point. Are women allowed to vote?
Oh, of course they are.
Who's voting those that patriarchy, and then out of curiosity.
No, I totally agree. And you want to know why? Because there are so many women who think like you. You submit to the idea of men ruling everything. And your ideology is spread across a lot of women who also falsely believe to vote against their own interests just to complain about it in the end. You know, earlier you said that, women.
So you think women are dumb, largely? Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Tiff says they forgot how women voted against Black femicide, and only 4 Republican men, including Ron Paul, were the only ones who voted for it. That's a very good point. That is a very good point. Like, you're not even allowed to bring that shit up.
Would be much more happier working at home. But don't you agree that it's human nature to want things that you don't have? Mm-hmm. So during the 1950s, which is something that you constantly bring up, it wasn't until 1994 that it was legally illegal to beat your wife. And so what we're dealing with is people wanting something, and then when they get it, they're not happy with it, and then they have to revoke that idea for something else. And so what you're saying is that women vote for these things because they have the same mentality as you.
Okay. So you're acknowledging that women have the freedom to vote.
Yes.
And you're saying that women are still existing mentally, even with the freedom to vote.
Correct.
They are voting men in because we are still victims of...
No, I don't believe in victimhood. I believe in lack of education and lack of knowledge, because one of the things that you also say...
Do you think that it could just be that more men are running for positions of office?
No, not necessarily. Because remember, the United States, the average reading comprehension of people in the United States is 6th grade. So we're not dealing with educated people. Lack of education is the cause for what we see in the world. And if we educate the women better, because a nation can rise no higher than its woman. And if she reading and comprehending at a 6th grade level and popping out a lot of kids, because the brokest people in the world pop out the most kids.
Okay, so she's conflating these statistics, right? Because America has some of the most educated women, right? When you're talking about women who have an average reading comprehension level of 6th grade, we're talking, if we actually kind of like break this down, the men aren't that much higher either. So it's almost like she's bringing in the statistics of people in third world countries along with America. That's what it sounds like to me. So women are the ones seeking higher education, namely Black women, who are, adversely affected by these things that Princella claims that she's against. But we'll get into that.
So if we have those people voting, of course they're going to vote against their interests, because they're voting for some utopian society that will never exist.
Okay, so that's why you think Kamala lost.
This ain't even about Kamala.
Because you're talking about women.
But you brought up voting against her interests, didn't she? Isn't she the one that brought up voting and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
No, but we had an opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
We had a male running and we had a female running. And we actually showed that Trump increased the amount of women who voted for him, right? So I'm asking you, do you believe that the reason that happened was because women became less educated during that time?
They've always been less educated. Did you know that UNESCO says that that 2/3 of the 7.7 million illiterate adults is women? Illiterate. And we have 6th grade educated people voting. And guess who? Guess the dominant population is white women. And so guess what? Now you have to add a race element into that, which you already know exists, because we as Black folks, we ain't the dominant people voting people in. Okay, so now when we have to go into white supremacy and feminism, now you have to look at the mind of the people who...
Let's talk about how she's lying, though. Okay, especially if we're using the benchmark of the 1950s. Today, women are at their educational height, right? Women are more formally educated more than they have ever been, which is why she has to bring in the education statistics and combine with what's going on in third world countries. There is nothing that you could show that would support a theory that women are less educated today. And I was just getting ready to say that, Island Girl, because it was exposed that, you know, she literally lied about her education. I'm not even going to go into it, but y'all already know, like, some of the quote unquote receipts that are flying around the social media came from us, because we have been seeing this girl grift. I'm talking about 15 years ago. Okay. We've seen every single grift. We've seen it all. So where do you get that from? Where do you get
straddles the fence?
Girl.
They're pretending to be a feminist, but at the same time is a woman hater. If you listen to her, she hates women, and she thinks we're all dumb, regardless of race. She thinks we all have 6th grade educations, and of course, Priscilla's the smartest person, the most manliest person in the room.
Yeah, it is really strange to see people talk about decentering men while morphing into one. But so, like, again, in the 1950s, most women didn't go to college. We had much lower graduation rates across the board for men and women, right? Because why? Women were pushed more towards being a homemaker and all this old shit. And if a woman did go to college back then, it was literally just to find a husband. She never finished college, right? So women actually get more college degrees than men at all levels, from associate's degrees to bachelor's degrees to master's degrees. Women get the most. And 60% of college students are women. What is she talking about? Okay. More women pursue advanced degrees, but, men dominate certain fields, like, like engineering and tech and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's more of an interest thing or whatever, but to sit up there and say that women are less educated now is absolutely absurd and a lie. A lie. You want to add something, Ren?
Nope, you fully encapsulated it.
I talk too much, I know.
No, ma'am, that was on point.
Thank you.
Actually have economic success and what they're voting for, because classism actually matters as well. So I'm sorry, but a lot of people vote based on their feelings and not based on policy.
Pause, guys.
Yes.
Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you.
They voted her out after she said that. After she said that women were less educated, they was like, no. They probably was like, you was doing good, but now, no, going about your business.
Because she really insulted every woman in that room.
Mm-hmm. She sure did. She insulted every woman in that room. Like, stop it. Okay.
Like, we know you bitches are dumb, but I'm here to save the day.
Girl. So yeah, I mean, I know some people said that she cooked Candace. I don't think either one of them cooked the other. They both, in my opinion, have an agenda, a very separate but opposite agenda, but an agenda the same. And both their agendas are very male-centered and male-driven. Priscilla is just better at being covert about her male-dominated agenda.
I don't know. I thought it shined through, and it was just crazy to see both of them on men's side, but from two different angles. But it's like there are two lives, and don't two lives cancel each other out? So I didn't see any cooking going on. All I saw
was no cooking. The closest that I've seen it cooking, and I know we didn't see not even a whole quarter of this. The young lady that was before the last lady. Before that dumb, she might have been cooking, because she was tripping Candace up.
Yeah, she was eating her up.
The black girl was eating Candace up, but the queer maker didn't do nothing. I'm sorry. No. She didn't do nothing. But and honestly, I absolutely do have a bias, but I don't have to be unfair in the assessment. Okay. I don't. They just, neither one of them cooked.
Yeah, no, because if she cooked her, I would have said it.
Yeah, definitely. Just like I remember when she went on Saint in the Sinner. I don't care for Saint in the Sinner, but he cooked her. You know, I mean, I equally dislike both of them, right? But he literally cooked her. And I was really disappointed because just being a woman, you want a woman to cook a nigga like that. You know what I'm saying? But like, no, he cooked the shit out of her.
Especially with his attitude. So yeah.
I'm telling you, I like his little we'll talk about that another time. Anyway, if you guys want us to finish this up, let me know down in the comments section, because there are quite a few others and I know we didn't get into it, but I got to get going because we've got our manifestation meeting and we take Sundays and Mondays off. So I'm excited to get back with the Girl Allies as we do our thing. Okay, shout out to the Rich Girl Club. And Fuzzy says she didn't even heat up the food. So today my impromptu co-host was Ren, who did exactly amazing. Ren has the Neutral Zone. Can you tell us a little bit about your channel and put a link to it so that we can find it?
Oh, I just switched things around, and so I don't have the link. But the Neutral Zone has moved over to where the Renaissance Woman show was. So the Renaissance Woman show is the Neutral Zone. There, at the Renaissance Woman show, we're going to pick back up on doing interviews. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be interviewing Nyla soon. And we're going to be talking about all things leadership, because I like the John Maxwell model. I do believe that all things hinge on leadership. I think women show up as leaders in so many facets of their life that they don't even recognize. Just having the title mom makes you a leader. You show up when your family, whenever something goes wrong, they call you. That is leadership. And so we'll be talking about all those things, Nyla.
Yeah.
Thanks for the plug.
No problem. So when I come back to pin the comment for the sponsors, then you'll give me the link and I'll just pin the link to your channel then.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I didn't offend you guys too bad. Not that I care. But anyway, see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Make me make a scene. Only time you hear my voice is when they play me on the screen. Got bad habits, I'm not the one you wanna keep. She a trap star, put that lady on a tree. Got her ass so shook, she shaking like an apple tree. Yeah, this life ain't meant for you, but baby girl, it's meant for me. This lifestyle ain't meant for you, it's meant for me. This lifestyle got girlies clocking on my teeth. This lifestyle can get you far, know what I mean. This lifestyle ain't meant for you, it's meant for me. What it do? This my boo, she from the south. We running man just like these bitches run they mouth. I got the juice, but they still claim it, it's a drought. If I say I'm coming through, I'm about to flip the house. That boy crazy, say he tryna have my baby. Hold on.